Now, welcome everybody to our Tarot Jam for this, the 14th day of June in 2017. I'm so glad to have so many of you joining us. I am, as I was saying in the chat before, I am suffering through some of the worst hay fever I've had in my life. I literally want to do nothing but scratch my eyes, and I know I shouldn't, so I'm trying very, very hard not to do that. So we are here to talk tarot, not my itchy eyes. And we've got lots and lots of people who have emailed me and posted on the Facebook group and for stuff. So we're going to see how we go for this hour. I'm going to try and do another one before we have another tarot jam before we have our first campfire Q&A for summer school. So we'll get to catch up as well. And let's start how we usually start. How is everyone going? Anyone got any new decks? What are you working with at the moment?
I'm actually working with the Visconti Sforza, which is interesting. Like working with like a pip deck has been an interesting experience. I've been just kind of really relying on traditional meanings and just kind of allowing myself to just delve deep into that. And that's been an interesting experience.
Awesome. It's nice to work with a different kind of deck. You can also pop it in the comments as well if you want to go on the chat and you don't want to have your face seen. You can let us know what you're working with. I got the idiosyncratic deck. I know I say that wrong. Tarot and Amethyst Oracle. I've got that tarot deck. I haven't worked with it very much, but I do have it. It's very pretty. Lisa the Cook's deck. That's a very cute deck. Sky Golden Universal, my very first traditional Rider-Waite Smith deck. I've been loving it. That is a beautiful deck, that Golden Universal Rider-Waite. Very, very sweet. All right. So while we're all away, I actually missed someone's question from last time. In the email in my inbox. So this comes from Jamie, and she's got a few questions. So I think we'll probably have to we won't be able to get to all of them, I don't think so. But the first question she have is, how do you know when it's time to leave a deck alone or let it go? If you do need to let it go, is there a proper way to let them go? So have you experienced that, tribe, where a deck is no longer talking to you? Someone posted about this today, actually. How do you know when it's time to leave them alone or let it go? What do you do? What's your personal practice there?
Personally, I feel if you have to like force the relationship with the deck, then you kind of need to at least take a break for a while. And I know the difference. I guess it's just an energetic thing for me when I know the difference between when I'm just like waiting on to be called by a deck or something, or versus when I'm no longer actually interested in it. And so like I have like the tea leaf reading fortune cards, and I haven't read that with them a lot, but I'm not getting rid of it. Like I don't feel like I need to let it go yet. But like there was a deck, the steampunk tarot is one of the Victorian steampunk tarot, maybe, with the collage one. And I was just like, it's not really my bag. And so I just passed it on. So I don't know. For me, it's just a big energetic thing. It's just like if you feel as if you need to take a break from a deck, then just do that. Take a break from a deck. You don't have to force a relationship with it. And then as far as like letting it go, I think that you really know when you're like, I think we've come to the end of this road. I think it feels almost like an actual relationship for me.
Cool. I saw Too Attached to Let Go a deck, so I'm waiting for them to finally bond with me. Treat it like a cat. Just let it be. Let it come to you.
Hi. So, is it okay to talk?
Yep. Just keep talking.
For me personally, if I find that the messages in the cards have any kind of negative or disempowering aspect to them, I won't work with them any longer. Like, I'll put them down and then I'll say, okay, maybe that's just me, and I'll come back and I'm like, nope, that's still a negative slant on something. I prefer more empowering messages from my tribe. So that's how I know whether or not it's a deck that I want to work with any longer. If that, I don't know, that's sort of a theme with me, but also because the decks aren't offering what it is that I do, or I work with the Angelic Rays of Light, I'm creating my own deck. So I bought your course.
Oh, for summer school? Yeah.
So,
and that's,
he's offering it. It isn't.
Yeah. So that's a really good point too, right? Like, knowing kind of what you're comfortable with, or what kind of reader you want to be, and then using the tool that is going to facilitate that, right? So we're not all the same, and that's what makes this amazing. So yeah, totally vibing with what is going to allow you to do that. And that's why some of us cycle our decks seasonally. That's why some of us, we'll keep our decks and not pass them on, or we'll just be like Jordan said, just like, no, this isn't for me, and sort of immediately move it on. But yeah, I think some of the good points in there is just about forcing it. Tarot breakup. Was the post that I did, the blog post I did about tarot breaking up with you. I'm just having a look.
I can touch on the ending ritual aspect that Jimmy was asking about. Personally, for me, I had a fairy deck when I was a kid, and that was like the deck I got for myself and I started with, and I loved it and I was feeling it. And then life happened and I put my decks away and I turned from that for a while, and I went to school, and then I came back to this, world, and I was like, I'm going to use my fairy deck. And I tried, and the deck just didn't feel right, really connecting with what Jordan said in regards to it, just energetically was just not working. So I decided that maybe this deck just needs some time alone. Maybe this deck's a little upset that I pushed it away like that. I don't know. It's a fairy deck too, so you're dealing with kind of that fae energy. I don't know. So what I ended up just kind of intuitively I thought was a good way of handling it is I put it in a box, and I had an owl feather. So I added a little token of an owl feather. And then I had some crystals that I felt were good. I had an amethyst crystal and a quartz crystal. So I put that in there as well. And I put the box in a dark, kind of quiet space to give it some time. And I just thanked it, and I'm letting it sit. And I don't know how long I will let it sit, but that's what it's doing for now. So that's kind of what I did with one deck that I cared about. Another one is what I've just straight up been played the cards to interview the deck. The deck was very communicative that this is not for me, and it's going to be going on to the next person. And then I just sat it on the table, and it just waited until someone came into my life, and then I gave it to them. So those are two ways that I went about decks that just stopped working for me personally.
Thank you.
You said it's not for me, and so, for me, it really feels that way. Energetically, it's really this deck isn't mine anymore. It really feels that way. I don't know. I can't describe it any other way, I guess.
That's a common thread too, that you'll find a lot of people will say that about decks, and I've had people say that to me when they've gifted me things. So I think, yeah, if you're an intuitive person or an empathic person on any level, you may get that feeling thing. But if you're more of a mind, analytical thinking person, then it could be that you don't get anything from it. It doesn't inspire you. I have a very interesting question from Linda. This is going to be because I've got some very strong feelings on this. I'm going to open it up though and let you guys talk, and then I'll comment. So she asked, I use the tarot occasionally. However, I have a friend who is really attached to drawing cards, and usually 3 at a time or more, about everything, every day, doing several draws. And if they don't like the answer, they draw 3 more for clarity. Sometimes it can be a real mishmash, and hard to discern a message. To me, it seems like overkill and that this person is way too dependent. And my question is, how do you know when enough is enough? Anybody else want to take this on, or should I just go?
I'll that drives me, it like drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because, you know, oh yeah. So it's just, it's like nails on the chalkboard for me, kind of. You know, someone comes to you for a reading and you do a spread and then they're like, I don't like it, do it again. And you're like, we can open up a section if you'd like, you know, we can open up some questions about this or, you know, kind of expand on this reading, but you're not going to get a new reading. I'm not going to give you a new reading. And if you don't like the 3 cards that you got, then maybe it's because you need to pay some attention to the 3 cards and deal with that shit. Don't do it again. Don't do it, you know. Oh gosh. So it really is, it's very grating. And I've spoken with you, with the group before about how, like, I limit people to the number of readings that they can have. You can come to me like every 3 months and, you know, we can have a good reading unless you have a very important question that we didn't answer in the previous session. Other than that, nah. But that is just me. It's just me. So.
Yeah. What my thing about hearing this sort of stuff is that when we start to hand not only everything you just said there, because I totally agree with absolutely everything you just said, but it's also, for me, what it's doing is it's transferring the power that the person has over to a deck of cards. And not only is it doing that, it's it's then saying, you've got the power, but I don't like what you're saying, so I'm going to keep manipulating it to the point where I do like what you're saying. So very much along that self-fulfilling prophecy stuff that I was talking about this week. And then it's like, well, I did this because I was led to through external force. Like, so therefore now the tarot becomes a scapegoat. And that's a very dangerous practice and place to be. So not only do I totally agree with you about everything you said as well, the power that someone is giving this over their life, especially themselves. Like, we talk a lot about, can you read for yourself effectively, and what are some of the effective ways of reading tarot for yourself? Making decisions every day around your life based on the tarot. Wouldn't say that's the one thing, that's what I would use the tarot for myself. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. But that's just me.
Yeah, it almost sounds more like there's an issue with them being able to make their own decision and take the responsibility for their own decision. And I think that, I mean, it's one thing to sort of to ask cards some clarity around something that you have an inkling of, or deep down that you do your 3 cards, you go, okay, I was right. Like, okay, my gut was right. Or yes, I should do that instead of this, or whatever. But to do it with everything, like, should I get up this, you know, should I cross the street today? You know, should I take this bus? You know, you're using it to make your decisions. It's not a safe thing. It's not a safe thing, because imagine if they're doing that with their cards, my concern would be, how much power are they giving to other people in their lives to make their decisions for them as well? And that makes them very vulnerable.
Amen, sister.
Powerlessness is a very strong theme on the planet right now. Those are the Blu-ray angelics that are coming to you, that are giving their power away. Sometimes, though, when people are resistant to the message, it doesn't have anything to do with you. It simply has to do with the fact that, because if it's upsetting you, that's a lesson for you that's also involved, because they're our greatest teachers, our clients. It's a major thing that I've certainly learned. But sometimes when they are in the thick of a lesson, they're not going to be able to hear anything that you have to say, but they're wanting a breakthrough. So something that I always do with mine is say, okay, I get that. I've been where you're at. It's difficult to hear some of these messages and explore it from there. But I don't tend to have clients that say, In fact, I've never had a client say, do the spread over. I've never had that. So I think it's also partially about the kind of client that we're attracting and setting that intention beforehand of who is it that we want, really to work with, because those are most of my clients are those Blu-ray angelics. I work specifically with twin flames. So I know very well when they're feeling powerless like that and giving their power away. Because usually if you're attracting that, there's some way that you're giving your power away as well. And it's not always easy to take a look at, but it's a powerful theme on the planet, ironically, right now. So, but I feel you.
See, like, I think that with what, was it, the lady's name who asked the question, Linda, I think, she was saying that it was a friend of hers and not a client. So, but you will find, there was a was it a YouTube video of a girl who was just on BuzzFeed or something, was just making every decision based on the tarot as almost like a joke thing going around. So there was someone put their hand up. The name Crazy Cat Lady. Did you want to say anything, or did you accidentally click the hand up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me? Yeah, I limit people to once a month. And I've had people say, well, you know what, can I pick another card? Can I pick another card? Can I pick another card? And I limit them to usually about 10 cards, depending on what's happening, and they're limited to once a month, because I find that not many, but say maybe 10% of the people I see just won't accept the answer. And I find the cards don't lie. The cards are just going to give you the same answer no matter how many times or how many different ways they ask the question. They'll try and figure out a different way to ask the question. It's like semantics. So yeah, I think just limiting them for me is actually the best way to do it.
Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. And when, again, talking to, and that's something that Teresa was saying, is setting the expectation or intention beforehand, and then letting your clients know as well if you do have things like limitations or limits on them seeing you. I'm going to make sure I try to scan for people putting their hand up more this call, because sometimes I miss it.
To my friends, when I do readings like that, or they pull cards, and they're like, oh, and they'll pull a couple cards for clarity or whatever, and they're like, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, well, that's the answer you got. I said, you can pull the card, keep pulling the cards, but you're going to get the same answer until you start acknowledging this one. You don't have to like it. You never have to like the information you get. But you have to at least acknowledge that that's the information that you got. Otherwise, you're just going to keep getting the same information.
Totally.
It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And until you change something up, you're not going to, you're not always ready for the answer. That's right, Teresa. But, even if
don't ask the tarot if you're not ready for the answer. Just,
even if you're not, then you just have to acknowledge, okay, this is the answer, this is the message I'm getting. Take that away, think about it, write about it, but it's sometimes you need to sit there and talk it out with them and figure out, flesh it out, what is it that you don't like about it, what are you resistant to hearing about that, maybe you're focusing on a different, maybe you're focusing that on the wrong area. Sometimes I've had situations that come over top of what you're asking. You might be asking about a relationship, but it's the information of a different relationship that's much stronger that needs to get pushed through, and that's what's getting pushed through. And so it's not pairing up with that particular question of a relationship, but a different relationship. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but...
There's also a difference too, and Corey just I'm just monitoring the thing. So Corey has a good point too. There is a difference between pulling a daily draw for yourself versus doing this sort of stuff where you're consulting the cards for everything and then shifting, going, I don't like the answer. What's behind door number 3? So there is a total difference between that as well. So I did want to acknowledge that for maybe beginners who will watch the replay and be like, oh, am I doing something wrong? Those we need to make sure we're talking about that as a separate thing. And also Lisa mentioned the same thing that you did, Michelle, is asking what they don't like about the card if you're getting that feedback. But then this also comes back to the type of reader you are, the type of reader you want to be, and the type of reading you're facilitating, because that's, it will, everyone reads differently. And so some people will get into that, like, let's go deeper, and why don't you like this card, and what is it about it? And other readers won't. So I would be doing what Lisa said and what Michelle was talking about, but that's almost like the next level of like helping the client to get there, for sure. Okay, and then we have Elizabeth has asked, how many people provide free readings for family and friends? Do you how many people provide free readings for family and friends? And how do you feel about that?
It's my choice. I do for my immediate family and my closest friends, but they're not regulars. Because I don't do readings professionally myself. And so I always say to them up front, okay, well, you are aware that I'm still learning, and I am, so, thank you. This is benefiting you, but it's also benefiting me. But I don't solicit, and I don't sit, it's not like I'm sitting there at Christmas slinging cards for my whole family. But, my mom quite often is talking, and she'll want to know something, or she's quite interested in what I'm doing. And so she'll have a question, and we'll pull some cards, and she uses them more as they help her have a conversation with me about something that's bothering her. So we use them as talking points. So as opposed to like a straight out reading, which really benefit our relationship. And then of course my closest friend, but we do that back and forth sort of practice on stuff. So, but I mean, I think it's everyone's personal choice. You don't have to read for anybody for free. You don't have to charge everybody either. It's your personal preference.
Is there anybody else? Sky, depends on if they're using me for readings. Is that like an exchange thing, Sky? Lyra, I do free readings for certain family members because I feel like there's an exchange of energy. Their meanings both receive something about the relationship. Yeah, I will do readings for family and friends, but it does depend. So if it's a situation where I'll check in, and if I don't feel like if I'm too close to it, then I'll just like, okay, I think you should probably go talk to someone else about it. But I don't do it all the time either. It's not something that I don't do readings for my family and friends all the time. Corey, I do, but only once in a while. I do have certain family members I won't read for because I always seem to resist the message or don't like hearing it from their little sister. Yeah, totally right. Like, read the room. Like, some people aren't going to hear it. I feel you don't have to read for anyone when you feel that they are trolling you and testing your accuracy. Totally. That's paid clients or people that you know. Totally agree.
What I meant whenever I said depends on if they're like using me for readings is I've had like some cousins be like, hey, do you want to come hang out? We're going to do this. I'll be in town. will you bring your tarot cards? And like me and my new boyfriend are hanging out. Do you want to? Will you bring your cards? Like anytime she wanted me to come around was because she wanted me to read for her. So for that, I got to where I was like, no, I'm good. I'm busy. Sorry, can't. No, I don't want to hang out. Sorry. But then I've got friends that like something will come up and I'm like, hey, like I don't want to be in your business, but like if you want a little bit of insight or you know, if you feel comfortable, you can come ask and like I'll sing some cards for you. I'll read. I'll help whatever insight I can. No big deal, but you know, not like demanding or I feel like they're gonna use me for that, then definitely not. But any like my close friends or my sisters or anything, well, my sisters, of course, totally. If they want a free reading, if there's anything I can do to help them, whatever they're going through, definitely I don't have a problem with.
Cool. Thanks for clarifying. And I've had friends who are like that too. And I have a friend who is a lawyer, and I'm sure she gets the same thing from people. It's just like, you know, or that doctor friend or that nurse friend or that IT friend or the mechanic friend, you know, so it's totally not just our industry for sure. Another question that Elizabeth had, which I think would be a nice one to talk about, is do you always read with the same tarot deck or do you have different ones that you read for? Well, that you use, sorry.
I use all sorts of different decks as we've talked about before. I find out it partially has to do with what deck calls to me that particular day, and also the client or the family member or the friend. Sometimes I'll have an understanding of what the question may entail, and so I might use a different kind of deck. You know, a Shadowscape deck, for example, is more gentle, has more gentle information, and you know, for someone that's brand new, I find that people are more open to that information if they're new to reading. That reading from that deck to them is more comforting. I have Creatures of the Forest, and it's like a funny, fluffy bunny sort of deck, and so I'll use that too. But you know, I have other decks. You know, the Disciples Tarot, for example, or some other decks that are a little bit what I would consider harsher, and the information is a little bit more in your face. And so I probably wouldn't use that deck until I've got some rapport with the client, so that you know, so that they understand that how the reading is coming out is partially related to that deck, and they're available to that message. If you know, if that's something that they're not available to, then you know, we'll just push that little deck aside and you know, pick a different one today.
I like what Alison said on the chat. Sometimes using one deck all the time gets a little stale. It helps keep my intuition in check by mixing it up instead of seeing the same imagery all the time. That's cool.
So one thing I think mentioned on here before is that I'm right now in the process of rotating all my decks. So every month I'm using a different tarot and a different oracle deck, more to get used to them as I go. But for reading for people, I use different decks. It really depends on where I am. I pretty much always have a deck in my purse. So
hashtag real tarot reader, hashtag.
So if you ask me, then you get stuck with whatever's in my bag. But at work, I have a couple of different decks, and so some of my coworkers have an affinity to one deck already, so I'll use that deck, or I'll let them choose which deck they feel more comfortable with. Like I have a traditional Rider-Waite deck here. I have the Circo Tarot deck here. I have 2 Oracle decks, you know, plus the one in my bag. So it's really about, sometimes for me, how familiar they are with tarot and the readings, and how from, you know, and so sort of to make it more enjoyable and understandable, I might use an easier to read or understand deck, you know, picture deck. So yeah, so that's what I do. But yeah, like I said, it just depends on where I am. Like, you know, I was at a bridal shower. All of a sudden they busted out some Saying Grace before they opened the presents. And I was like, okay, I'll just leave the deck in my purse and not pull that out to do a reading for the pregnant lady. I'll just leave that there, right? So yeah.
So like Misty made a really good comment, and this is totally valid. She said at the moment I'm only using one for reading and for other people until I get to know other decks, and that's totally true. So many of us, me included, have a deck have a large collection and love to have different decks for different reasons. But you can totally just have one deck. I know some people who have used the same deck for years, and it's also totally cool to slowly incorporate different decks or to use the deck that you're comfortable with for client readings while you're learning a different deck as well. So you don't need to have a lot of decks to be a great reader, and that's totally a nice way to learn a new one as well, is to give yourself the time to bond with it before you start to use it for other for readings. I still ask, on average, how many decks do you guys bring when you go out? Depends where I'm going. Sometimes, I mean, I don't have a deck in my bag all the time, but more often than not I do. Yeah, usually one or two if I'm going out. And yes, if I'm traveling, it'll be around the 5 to 6 mark. So yeah, a lot of people 1 to 2, 5 when I travel, 2 to 3 decks. Corey, totally the first 6 years I read using the same deck. Yeah, totally. Jordan, I also have the Tiny Tarot on my keyring. So cute. I used to have that deck. It's so small. It's so tiny. Okay, so let's have a look at some other questions. Oh, Jordan, which one do you want us to talk about? You're up, Boo. Which one do you want us to...
What was the last question I asked?
You said, what experiences have you had receiving readings, the good, the bad, the ugly, the hilarious?
That's a good one, but I think my first question is the one I really want to ask.
Okay, so this is Jordan's question for all of us. When you use an esoteric system with the tarot, such as astrology, Kabbalah, or numerology, how much of that information do you put into the delivery of your message? And I guess what Jordan is saying as well is that, so do you say, this is the tarot meaning, but in numerology, like, do you put it on top of? Do you weave it in? How much emphasis do you put on that? And yeah, I think that's what you're trying to say, yeah? Yep.
So I'm a slap in your face kind of other thing. So, you know, unless I draw or whoever it is draws, like, you know, every 8 in the deck and it comes up, and then I'm going to be like, okay, there's a very distinct numerological message, or you know, every card associated with a certain either, like, you know, they're all Earth cards or they're all Taurus related or something like that, you know, something that's very slapping your, because I'm not as proficient with with numerology and astrology, but if I know for a fact that it's like whack, okay, that I'm going to pay attention to that and I'm going to give that message. Otherwise, it's probably just usually the for me, just the tarot message. But yeah, we have to be a slap in the face kind of a message for me to take a lot of notice of it.
Okay, so Penny is saying, I weave it into the info from various modalities. I don't explain where the message is coming from. They usually aren't interested in my resources as much as they're interested in their personal reading. Yeah, totally. I hear you on that one. So
I see it as layers. Oh, you want to?
Nope.
Okay. I see it as like layers. Usually it's the tarot cards are the first layer, and then the elements are the next layer, and then the numerology is the layer after that, and then, as you know, I throw the runes on top. And for me, as I'm reading, if I feel like there's something else in the layer underneath, then my eyes will be drawn to the fact that 7 + 3 is 10, or otherwise, you know, I won't have noticed that particular concern. And so if I'm like, oh, well, it looks like you're coming to the end of a cycle, and then I see that the numerology is saying, oh, it's kind of the end of a cycle, then I'm going to weave it in. So I definitely weave it in, but it's a layered effect. So if I feel like I've pulled the information and the other layers aren't, you know, bringing me deeper into the spread, then I wouldn't notice. But if the layers take me in, then I go in with it.
Awesome. I very much like Penny. I believe mine is, it's not always very clear on to where the information is coming from, unless it is, like Michelle was saying, like glaringly obvious. Like sometimes clients will be like, oh my gosh, like even I'll be, when I'm laying out, you know, look at all those 7s, you know, and then if there are a lot of 7s in that, then I'll talk to them about the significance of the 7. But yeah, it really does depend on how I'm reading it. But what I also do like to do, and what I started doing when I was learning the tarot, was to do the reading, and then before you kind of close shop or start to close out that section or put the cards away to draw more for your client, is to just like take a step back and have a look at the reading overall to see if there are any underlying themes or numerological themes or astrological themes coming in. So like if you have the Lovers and the Knight of Swords, which are both Gemini cards in the reading, okay, well, you know, give yourself a second to like just look, even just to be on the lookout for it as you learn, can be really cool as well. I used to, that is kind of off topic a little bit, but what I did a lot of when I first started was, I really didn't like silence between, like if someone was sitting in front of me for a reading, I would just talk. Me talk never, but I would just talk. And the more I learned, the more I was like, right, I can actually take my time. I can actually breathe deeply and allow myself to just look at this from a different perspective as well. So it certainly can help to do both. Penny, if they ask how I came to the conclusion, I'll tell them if I'm using numerology or anything else. Yeah, totally. But yeah, so I agree with Penny. Not all clients are interested in numerology, astrology, etc. Sometimes they just want to be read. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Cool. Brandy, and if I jump to the next question and you want to come back to one, you can always do that as well, guys, by the way. Brandy has had an interesting question. So she asked, what do you do with clients? So she's given us 2 different types of clients. I would use different methods to deal with either of these. So I'll throw both of them out there. So the first client is a client who constantly interrupts and won't let you finish a complete sentence. And the second client is the one who comes in stating they know that readings are a ploy to make money, they don't believe in the art of tarot, and other divination is complete bullshit. The only reason they're here was to prove themselves right. And how do you deal with those 2? So me, I've had all sorts of clients. The second one, I would be like, here's your money, fuck off. Don't waste my goddamn time. I am not, to quote Pink, I am not here for your entertainment yet. I just would be like, no, like, go away. Respectfully, I don't have time for your shit. And then the first one, the person who constantly interrupts and won't let you finish a complete sentence, I actually let them talk. This is something that I learned when I was in university. I was in university for primary school teaching or elementary school teaching for American friends. And you just look at them and you don't say anything. You smile, you nod, and you wait until they get quiet. You know, maybe, and there's going to be two types of people. There's going to be the hyper excited person who is like, wants to get in on the action and be like, yeah, I totally saw that. And then they kind of run on a tangent. And then you're going to get the person who will be like, they know what they're like, they start reading for you. So I just let them, some people just want to talk. Some people just want to talk. Some people just want to be heard. They're paying you. You know, like I just let them talk, but that's me. I mean, clearly I wouldn't let them talk until like it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll be like, I always give people a 10-minute warning anyway. So if they have, I'll be like, okay, we're about to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. Is there anything you really want to focus on? And that can bring people's attention back. But that's how I would deal with those two people. Anyone else? No, I think that's Corey. I'm not down for your personal episode of Mythbusters. Yes. Yes, Teresa makes a good point. So if you want to let your clients know that there will be a time for them to ask questions, and you can let them know for sure. Jenna, exactly. Then they've talked themselves out of a reading. I've literally had someone talk themselves out of a reading. I still ask, what do you guys do when your clients suddenly become quiet after your reading? Don't say anything.
After that, you know, the awkward silence, I generally ask if some, like, everything resonated. Or I just generally ask some questions and get some feedback or anything. Try to like engage in a conversation, because to be honest, depending on the reading, you may have just been talking at them for however long, and so they're just sitting there like trying to process everything that you have just said to them, and so it's pretty normal, I think. But to bring them back to earth, like, hey, we're still here. You did get this reading, and it's a lot to process, but can I help you process any of that? I think is kind of the route that I would go.
Yeah. There's two practices that I like to do at the end of a reading as well. One of them is just wrapping it up, because as Jordan said, this is why I like doing the kinds of readings that I do where they're recorded or they're email, because people can go back, and if people come for face-to-face, I get them to record it on their phone so they don't miss anything. And I would usually say, okay, to summarize for you, this is da-da-da-da-da, and then I usually close out with an oracle card too to help bring their energy back, and so that they're not sitting there trying to process absolutely everything in that few final minutes to try and, it's like when you wake up from a dream, right? You're trying to like remember everything. Some readings can literally be like getting a download, so you're just like, oh fuck, you know. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Corey, I let them sit for a minute, then I ask if they have any questions or if there is a card that's sticking with them. If they say no, then I do a wrap up. Yeah, great. Penny, sometimes I ask if they have any questions or do they want more information or a card that is out. Nice. Cool. Mary asks, what is the best way to read a negative card in a favorable position? In other words, the card represents your helper at this time and you pull the 9 of Swords. Oh, that's happened to all of us. Anyone want to grab this one? Or?
I promise to like be the first person to just jump in, but I like all the time. But I do have an opinion, of course I do. So I've been like thinking a lot about, especially in working with pip cards and not working with reversals, is about acknowledging. I think we've had a little bit of this conversation before about acknowledging both the kind of light and the shadow in the card, and I think. For me, I have been trying lately to read the card from both perspectives. So if I get, if only I had a deck on me, it's not in the other room. Anyway, so if I had, say, the Fool, and, you know, I can both ask myself, how do I feel that I can embody this energy more? And I can ask myself, in what ways am I being foolish? I can ask myself both of those questions. I'm allowed to acknowledge both of those aspects. And I think it gives a more complex and a more in-depth reading, because I don't think that we live in this place of absolute polarity. We don't live in this place of absolute shadow or absolute light. And so specifically like the Helper and the Nine of Swords, you know, we can say things like, maybe there's something to do with your anxiety that you can actually use to help you, or something that is worrisome. So it's about acknowledging that shadow and acknowledging the kind of complexity of that, finding that gray area of what is traditionally a negative card, I think, for me.
Yeah, and Lyra makes a really good point too. Every card has a spectrum, and I know a lot of us in the tribe believe that for sure. And also, for me to add on top of what you're saying, Jordan, because I completely agree with you. Say if I had your Helper at this time and someone pulled the Nine of Swords, I would also think, okay, well, has that person actually even acknowledged maybe that they have some mental health stuff coming on, right? So it's like your Helper at this time, why are you actually asking for help? Are you getting the help? Are you acknowledging that you need the help? Because that's quite the card to have in that position. So I also look at it from the real, like the tarot is kind of giving me a clap back or throwing shade and just going, right, like, you know, or, you know, you say, let's put a different card on there. What is your Helper at this time? The Five of Pentacles. Well, for me, the tarot would be saying, don't throw more money at it. That's not going to help you. Like, you don't go and just chuck money at the problem and expect that it's going to go away. So you're looking at the aspect of that card being, you know, loss, financial or monetary loss. That's one of the aspects of that card. So I would look at it from a real pragmatic point of view as well, and we don't always have to, I guess, get deep to find that meaning if we're confused. Like, yeah, just take it at face value for sure. Jenna, I think it challenges you to go through the cards not reversed and ask the positive as well as the negative questions of each. That is why I like doing the Instagram challenges or daily prompts, so I can practice interpreting the cards in both ways. Yes, and this is why I don't read reversals. Corey, great question for me. I always try to see the positive aspect of each card. So if something pops up awkwardly, like the Ten of Swords in the hope position, then I would say, okay, you've hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. And also the shadow aspect of each card, if I get a positive in a card that is in a negative position. Yeah, so I think a lot of us have kind of have said very much the same thing.
One thing that I have learned most recently is that, because I started reading reverse, but I have found that some decks do not work with reverse. Like, it doesn't seem to matter how you flip the card. There's no, like, it's almost like upright, it's readable. Reversed, I don't know what that is. Like, it's some decks just have cards like that. You're just like, what? So I found that there are decks where I can read reversals on, some I can't read reversals on. And sometimes it's not so much that I read the reversal, but if it comes up reversed, it's more about that there's some more negative, like more blockage happening, or there's more something happening about that card, some pushback, so, you know, if the nine, you know, if say the Nine of Swords came up, and it came up reversed, I'd be like, are you dealing more with some more anxiety or something added onto your life that's been more, you know, or why are you afraid of that hope? Why is that hope causing you more anxiety as opposed to helping you relieve that anxiety? And I just sort of use it as a signifier that, hey, there's something extra going on here.
Cool. Oh my gosh, my eyes are so itchy. Okay, so Alison has asked, I feel like I have trouble reading romantic questions. I do better readings for the queer when they ask about their career or life in general. Are there any tips? Do you change your reading somewhat for different cards? I feel like I'm missing something. So this is a good question. do you believe in being a special, like having a speciality or a place or a comfort zone in your readings? I believe that that's totally cool if you're not into like if you don't want to do romantic readings, or you feel like that's not where your passion for helping people is, then refer them on and let that kind of go. There's enough out there for everybody. Teresa's saying it's okay to specialize in things other than love readings. Yeah, for sure. It does depend, I believe, that what kind of reader you want to be. So as I've mentioned many times, the two big things you'll find, so if you go and work for an organization, or you work at fairs, or you work at shops, and I've done I give countless face-to-face readings at those events, you will find that a lot of your questions are going to be about love or money. So if you don't want to have those questions, or if you feel like that's not really your speciality or not something you feel comfortable with, then ensuring that you're also setting yourself up to succeed and not placing yourself in a position where you're going to be facing that a lot. And online is a perfect example. You can filter your potential clients out. But yeah, that's been my experience on that. So anybody else would like to? Bye, buddy. My little dude. So did no one else wants to say anything on that? Did I pretty much say that one? Lyra said I use present spreads, create my own, and also use free flow. Cool. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they want to talk about? We got through quite a few questions that were emailed.
I'm curious about something. I was just wondering what people generally thought about, because a lot of decks are going out now. People are creating some beautiful artworks on their decks, including you, Ethany. And I was just wondering, a lot of decks now are with the tarot, they're creating like duplicate cards, like an alternate high priestess or an alternate ghoul. And I'm just wondering if people have decks that include these, and do they use them, or do they only keep the card that most resonates with them in the card and do their readings that way?
I personally have the Alice Tarot, and that has 2 lovers cards in it. And I actually originally only picked one of them and read with just one of them. And then now I've just decided that I actually like the fact that it has 2 different lovers cards, and I like to read with both of them in the deck. And so, of course, it's a personal decision no matter what it is. And I know that the lovers card specifically is one of the most common that I've seen having alternates, just for gender identity and things like that, sexual orientation, all of those kinds of things. But I think it's really up to you. Do you want to read it with a deck that has 78 cards? Do you want to stick within that structure? And of course, it depends on the deck itself. Or do you like that it comes with that and that it becomes kind of a unique system? I mean, it's also kind of, we have those decks that come with an extra card. Like I know the deck that I know that has it is the New Orleans Voodoo Tarot, comes with an extra, the 79th card, or whatever, the Happy Squirrel card, yeah. And so it's like, do you want to read with that, or do you not want to read with that? It's really up to you.
Yeah, and so it's also the same thing with when you have decks that have added suits. So the 5th tarot is one where they have the added suit of ether, of spirit, and in that instance I would keep it. It's the same with the Victorian Romantic. They've got 2 lovers, and I keep that in there because it's because I use it mostly for romantic romance readings. Yes, there are lots of Lenormand decks that have 2 people cards. that though, I would, because the way that the Lenormand is designed, I would take one out, because that's specifically designed to be read with all the cards laid out, and then the meaning of everything will change, because you're adding 2 more players basically into the field. I love reading with the entire Xerxes Magi Tarot, all the extra suits. Pagan Other Worlds has those moon phase cards, so it seems like a lot of us keep them in. I like the Triple Goddess Tarot has an extra Fool. I actually took one out because, again, like if it's an extra suit that's been designed in the deck, I'll keep it. But because the Fool is the major arcana and it's, I don't know, I don't need 2 Fools, I guess. I like just that one thing. So yeah, but I think it's a personal choice for sure. But that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So has anybody else got any other questions they would like to ask on this Tarot Jam tonight?
I would like to, if I may, revisit the second question that I asked, which is just advice for different people. So advice that we would have for new readers, and advice that we would have for seasoned readers, and advice that we would have for people who feel like they're struggling with their readings right now. I don't know, but something to do maybe.
So what do you mean by struggling though? Because there are many ways to struggle, my friend.
Well, I guess struggling specifically with their reading right now, like just with their reading practice. They feel as if they're maybe stuck or something like that.
Can I speak?
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't sure you could hear me. I teach tarot, and so I do all kinds of crazy stuff, like throw them out there in different literally crisscrossing them all over the place and having them look at them in different ways. I encourage them to look at patterns and all of it, patterns, numbers, colors. And by throwing them out, not in a spread, but literally I had one client who was just, not one client, but one student who actually was very rigid in the way she did and structured, and just having everything thrown out all over the place. She's like, oh my gosh. But after a while, she's one of my best students and she's still with me, and it's been 3 years. So I think if you're struggling, you need to start looking at them in different ways, whether you bring out another deck or whether you literally toss out the cards in different ways. Some of the things I've done with students has been to have them, like court cards. Court cards are always a problem. And so I've had them use Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings to assign the suits to. And let's see, TV shows. TV shows that they're used to, that kind of know the characters to, but they don't know necessarily what's going to happen. I will suggest they do a reading for that as well. Those are just a few things that I would suggest you do to kind of practice. And if you're feeling kind of stuck, you can kind of get unstuck with getting creative with it. That's it.
Cool. No, there's some really, really great suggestions, and I do the same thing with the court cards as well. Getting people to assign different pop culture entities they are familiar with, it definitely does help. With what Jordan was saying about advice to people who, I guess, who are starting out. I know I've said this a number of times, but just to give yourself time to, if you're building a business, if you're building a tarot practice, we can get real FOMO because we're on social media. We can feel as though there's so many people. How am I going to find clients? How am I going to build my brand? How am I going to, all this? And we see everyone kind of like saying, yay, my business is fantastic and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it can get really overwhelming. So do give yourself permission to, story of my life, give yourself permission to focus on your own stuff, hop off social media for a while, and give yourself the time to build your practice. It didn't happen overnight for anyone. So don't, it's that whole like wanky kind of thing of like, don't compare your middle, like your beginning, to somebody else's middle. And it's so true. But it can be very hard to remember that when it seems to be moving so quickly, for sure.
Can I plug a podcast? It's not mine.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Beyond Worlds. It's with Donnelly De La Rosa, I think is her name. She has Intensive Tarot, and they're like 2-hour podcasts, and they're amazing. They have 4. Is anybody familiar with it? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I'm not really a podcast girl.
I stumbled on it, neither was I, but I'll tell you, I've learned so much because you will learn numerology, astrology, and tarot, the symbolisms of the cards. And you have 4 different people there discussing like 1 or 2 cards at a time. So if you're really stuck, they give you so many different new insights. I thought they were fabulous. I wish they were still on. They're not on anymore. But you can find them at Beyond Worlds.
Oh, so just like beyondworlds.com, or?
I think it's Beyond Worlds Tarot Tribe. If you type it into Google, you'll find it.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, Blog Talk Radio. There you go. Cool. Oh, there we go, yeah. Jamie. Jamie's always on it. Jamie's always like, I'm on it. Was there anyone else who wanted to add any?
Yeah, so I was very lucky when I came back to tarot after being gone for so long from tarot, that I would say that if somebody is new and, trying to learn, my advice would be gentle with yourself, and it's okay to not associate the card with what the book says that it is, I have cards in decks that, yes, that is the book meaning for me, and then other cards in that same deck I don't, because they just don't resonate with me. But that's okay. And to realize that the cards have to mean something to you for you to be able to read them for somebody else. It doesn't necessarily have to be what's in the standard card definition, and that's okay.
That's a really, really important thing to be always saying, to make sure that we listen to our intuition. My gosh, we've hit over our hour, guys. I've got my little dude to take care of. I was in a daze. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be scheduling another one before, maybe not before summer school starts, but next month. Thank you so much for all of your contribution. It was great seeing everyone. I'll pop this up on YouTube, and